original.
Hello, and welcome to Web Crawlers, the podcast where we do a deep dive into some of our favorite mysteries. Each week, we will introduce our topic, lay out our research and findings, reveal some conspiracy theories, and conclude with our own hypothesis. I'm Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Stettin.
And I, producer Maria.
She died, unfortunately. I'm so sorry.
Rest in peace. Melissa, who are our patrons for today?
We have Jennifer and Rachel.
Jennifer and Rachel, welcome to the team.
Ding
sound effect.
dong.
We are excited to have you. Melissa, what is our episode on today?
Well, today, if you remember last episode,
Yes.
we were talking about Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yes, and how she might be the devil.
How she might be the devil because her dad is Vic Morrow, who died in the Twilight Zone movie crash, which is what we're talking about today. So that was very strange.
Yes, because Jennifer Jason Leigh has the same birthday as the Antichrist that
Right.
Nostradamus predicted. And Jennifer Jason Leigh's dad is who our episode is on today, oddly enough. An unplanned, just a weird coincidence.
Weird coincidence. So
Yes.
this episode was suggested by none other than Dan Tana.
Always. Oh, all roads lead to Dan Tana.
Coming in hot. So the Twilight Zone, the TV show, is one of my favorite shows.
Love
so
it.
for those of you who may not have seen the Twilight Zone, it was back in like the 50s and the 60s. So like I'm sure a lot of you haven't seen it. But in 1959, this TV writer guy and hot as hell, Rod Serling,
So hot.
created the Twilight Zone.
I'll ask before we get into it, do you have a favorite episode?
Oh, yes.
What is it?
It's called Walking Distance.
Which one is that?
It's the one where this guy goes on a drive to clear his head. He stops at a gas station. He goes on a walk. And then he walks, like takes 20 minutes to walk. And he walks into like a town that looks eerily similar to where he grew up. And he's like, oh, weird. This is like where I grew up. And like it's the same like soda fountain store. And like everything's the same.
Weird.
And he's like living in this like nostalgia, and he's like, oh, it's so nice to be back home. And he like tries to talk to his parents, but everyone thinks he's crazy. They're like, get out of here.
Shit.
And he tries to talk to his younger self, and everyone's like, get out of here, get out of here.
Oh my God.
And it's about like how everyone like kind of wishes that they could go back to their childhood, but like
and it's not what you think it is.
it's not attainable. It's
Mine
pretty
is
sad.
Yeah, mine is number 12 looks just like you.
That's the
The one where everyone has plastic surgery to look exactly alike,
Yes.
and one girl doesn't want to get the plastic surgery,
who's
and
like
she's like,
beautiful.
yeah, she's already beautiful, but everyone wants to get plastic surgery to look the same, and
Like these pig monsters.
yes, and it's very reminiscent of everything, or it's kind of like foreshadowing what's going on today with like the Kardashians, where
Yes.
everyone looks like the same Instagram filter.
This show was way ahead of its time. It's
way ahead of its
amazing.
time. Yeah, it's an incredible show. So if you have a favorite episode, please let us know.
Yeah,
But
there's
anyways,
over
please continue.
50 episodes. But yeah, they do. It's like an anthology series about controversial subjects and social issues. They do a marathon New Year's Day on the Sci-Fi Channel. Martin thinks I'm crazy because I'm like, we got to watch the marathon. He's like, you could stream the episodes at any time. I'm like, it's not the same.
It's a fun tradition. My family does it too. We would always
Yeah.
watch the marathon.
Yeah. And so Rod Serling was like constantly at odds with the network because they thought the show was like too dark and weird.
Oh,
So what he
interesting.
did was he masked them as like science fiction and supernatural stories because like the best horror and science fiction are the ones that are like about real life anyway.
Totally, yeah.
People are crazy. So that's how he got away with 156 episodes. And it was so
Bananas.
successful, they turned it into a movie, which is what we're going to
Yeah.
talk about today.
Movie's not as good.
No. But not just about the movie, about this like fatal accident that happened on the set that was like so tragic, but like preventable.
Yeah.
Very preventable. And no one was really held accountable for it. No one really got punished for it. So how did director John Landis, a.k.a. Max Landis' dad,
Scary.
get away with the deaths of 3 people? Let's get into it. So you've probably seen some of John Landis' movies. Prolific director. He did Coming to America, The Blues Brothers, Three Amigos. He directed Thriller, the music video.
Oh, wow, really? So no wonder people gave Max Landis a shot. Like, his dad is really talented.
Oh, yeah. And he did the black or white Michael Jackson video. Like, amazing. So, yeah, some of you may know him from his son, Max Landis.
Garbage human and like sexual predator.
Yeah, he made a movie called Chronicle in 2012 that was, I guess, popular. I didn't see it. I don't know.
Chronicle wasn't bad, but he's a bad guy.
He's a bad, in the words of Billie Eilish, he's a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
So with him, so back in 2017, some stuff started showing up on Instagram and Twitter about like how terrible he was. And then in 2019, like this whole article came out in the Daily Beast from 8 women who accused him of like emotional abuse. One woman said he's a serial rapist, a gaslighter, physical and psychological abuser. She said that he would show her abuse and humiliation porn in order to test her boundaries, amongst other awful things. I met him in 20. Have you ever met him?
I have not met him. Oh, I was like introduced to him in passing, but I've never like had a conversation with him. Like, we were in the same place at the same time.
Right. I met him I was at a comic book convention in Las Vegas against my will. It was my boyfriend at the time was on the panel.
Yeah.
And so was Max. And I met him, and he was so weird. He was
very weird when I met him too. Yeah.
And like that night there was like a party, and like he met a girl there, and was like this very young girl who like he brought to like all the bars, and they were just like making out, and like it was so weird. It was uncomfortable.
When I remember when I met him too, he was very like peacocking. Like, he had rainbow hair and was dressed very flamboyantly. It was yeah. I met him at a comedy thing or something.
He wrote my ex-boyfriend wrote a script with him after all this stuff came out.
Yes.
And like sent it to me, and I was like, it was like written by blah 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 and Max Landis. I'm like, you working with him after all this stuff came out? He's like, yeah, well, he sells a lot of scripts and whatever. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, okay, good luck.
It's the friend we have in common, right?
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, because I remember he told me that too, and I was like, "Isn't he not?" Yeah.
Okay, it was like 2016 or something.
Yeah, it's like when opportunists collide.
Yikes!
Yeah.
I didn't read the script. I didn't read the script. I was like,
no, neither did I. Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the worst movie set accidents ever occurred during the filming of Twilight Zone, the movie.
Yikes.
And now the film is just mostly remembered for the tragic behind the scenes stuff that happened.
Yeah.
So this was produced by Steven Spielberg of
I didn't know that.
Jurassic Park fame.
Of Jurassic Park. Yeah, you might know a little ditty called Jurassic Park.
So he was a producer. And the movie was made up of 4 different stories. John Landis, he was given the story called Time Out. And in this segment, a man tries to make up for past sins by becoming a hero. And then I think Steven Spielberg directed one of the segments. So the Twilight scene, the scene in this movie, it was supposed to depict Vic Morrow, who was like big actor at the time. He was saving 2 Vietnamese children from an attacker in a helicopter. So the story was Vic Morrow, he played this like super racist guy. The story is like him at a bar. He's complaining to his friends about this like Jewish man that took his job, but he's saying it in worse.
That's what we do.
Yeah. And he's talking about like this Asian family, the black people, but saying the slurs.
Yeah. Oh God.
And I was like, oh geez. I was like, I forgot people were just saying that shit on TV back then. But then he leaves the bar and he like gets thrown into like World War II, where he's treated as like a Jewish person, and then he gets thrown into Vietnam.
He got like Scrooged.
Yes,
like
he got Scrooged.
Okay.
He got Scrooged. And so one of the scenes is where he's in Vietnam in the war. There were 2 children in the scene with him. They were hired after Peter Wei Ti Chen, who was an uncle of someone who worked on the film, was approached by the colleague and who was like, oh, I have a brother who has a 6-year-old daughter. Like, it was just like word, like, oh, do you know 2 kids who will be in this? And the parents agreed to let them be in it. And then he called a Vietnamese colleague who had a 7-year-old son named Micah. And like Micah was like this outgoing kid. And they're like, okay, yeah, like he'll be interested in being in a movie. But this guy who hired them had no idea that they were going to be that close to a helicopter. He didn't know what the scene was. He had no idea. There was like explosions and helicopters. He was like, oh, fuck, I didn't realize that was the scene. So in the scene, Vic Morrow carried Renee Shinyi Chen, who was 6, and Micah Din Lee, who was 7, through the Santa Clara River as like these explosions are going off all around them. And there's a helicopter flying like about 25 feet above them.
Oh God.
When one of the explosions went off and it hit the helicopter, and the helicopter just like engulfed in this like fireball. And
Not intentional.
This is not what was supposed to happen. And then the pilot lost control, and then the helicopter like spun around and fell on the actors. And it crushed one of the kids, then it decapitated Vic Morrow and the other kid.
Oh, fuck.
And like all this happened, like everyone, like the 100-person crew and the parents, they all saw this happen. And there's footage of this on YouTube.
Ooh,
like the whole scene is up there. And I think like Martin remembers seeing it. He's like, I swear they left it in the movie, but I don't think they did. Cause I was trying to find on Reddit, because the movie now that I watched recently doesn't have that footage. They just cut the scene like at some other
interesting.
But it's on YouTube. So I don't think it would seem crazy if they left that in the movie.
Maybe they Mandela effect.
But the whole scene is on YouTube, where it shows like the helicopter coming around and like landing on them. It's fucking
Jesus
crazy.
Christ. What year was this?
1983, I believe.
That's crazy because there were special effects then. Like there's safer ways to have conducted that scene, I'm sure.
When it looked real.
Yeah, it wasn't real enough for the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah, the fucking Twilight Zone movie. What's crazy is that the line that Vic Morrow was supposed to say was right before the accident occurred was, I'll keep you safe, kids. I promise nothing will hurt you. I swear to God. So that's very dark. Very dark.
Yikes.
So the associate producer, this guy named George, told the children's parents not to tell any firefighters on set that the children were part of the scene, and hid them from a fire safety officer who also worked with a welfare worker. Like, these kids were hidden because there was like everyone was concerned. It was illegal, like illegally hiring children to work in this environment.
Oh my God.
So a fire safety officer was concerned that the blast would cause a crash, but he didn't tell John Landis. He was like, I don't know about this, but like he didn't say anything about it. He's like, they probably know what they're doing.
Holy shit.
So the location was in Indian Dunes, which is a movie ranch in Valencia, which is now Santa Clarita. And that's where they filmed a ton of movies in the 80s, like The Color Purple, Escape from New York, MacGyver, and China Beach. And so the location was in this 30-mile zone, which had permits for pyrotechnic effects. So that's why they could shoot night scenes without city lights in the background. So it was zoned for like...
Interesting.
And then the helicopter pilot, his name is Dorsey Wingo.
All right.
Fake name. He was hired to fly the helicopter. And he was an actual veteran who had flown during the Vietnam War. So like he knew what he was doing. But the Twilight Zone was the first time flying on camera. So he wasn't like a set flying helicopter. He'd only flown like in the war.
New.
So he was probably like freaked out by all these explosions around him.
Yeah, you think? Or he also probably got a little PTSD,
Right,
to be
that's
honest.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And like having like a director yelling at him over the radio, like, and you couldn't really hear it. It turned out the radio was like not working properly.
Oh, God.
And so the production was like already behind schedule. And John Landis was known to be like impatient and crazy. Like that was his reputation.
That's fun.
This pilot, he didn't really say anything about like the dangerous situation because he's like, well, I want this job and I want to work. So no one was saying anything. So during the filming, he flew the helicopter 20 feet from the ground while just like kind of hovering near a large explosive. But then he turned the helicopter 180 degrees to the left for the next camera shot. But then this thing detonated while the helicopter's tail was still above it. So it caused the rotor to fail and detach from the tail. And the helicopter spun out of control. And then Vic Morrow dropped the children into the water. He was trying to grab one of the kids to get out of the way. And the helicopter just fell on both of them. Like just instantly killed them.
Now, let's take a quick break for announcements. Webcrawlers has a Patreon. To get access to bonus episodes, shout-outs, merch discounts, and more, please go to patreon.com/webcrawlers. You can donate as little as $2 a month to become one of our bimbo patrons. Also, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you give us a 5-star review, we will shout you out. Also, we got written a letter. We were on Swedish national television.
Yeah. Shit, how do you say hello? And it's not Danke. That's German.
Danke schön. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag. Danke.
No, hello in Swedish.
It's probably something like
Halla. I don't know how to pronounce it, but halla.
Halla.
Halla. So if you guys work for any news outlets, writers, freelancers, anything like that, feel free to include us on your list.
Free. It's free.
You're allowed. We're telling you you're allowed. Also, Erios has a hotline. Insert jingle here.
626-604-6262.
Erios.
Please continue to call. We love your voicemails and the community that it creates. Now, back to our program.
But then they went to court.
Good.
So John Landis and a producer, and then the film's production manager, the pilot, and the explosives specialist all appeared in criminal court to face involuntary manslaughter charges during a trial that lasted almost 10 months.
Wow.
And included 71 witnesses.
Wow.
And it also gave John Landis the negative distinction of becoming the first movie director to ever be charged with a death on set.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. But he refused to accept responsibility for the accident. He said, we planned everything carefully and he had no part in any of the events that occurred. Still to this day, he does not take responsibility for it. So the defense claimed that the explosions were detonated at the wrong time. So they're blaming it on the explosives guy.
Interesting.
So Randall Robinson, who was an assistant cameraman on the helicopter, he testified that the production manager told the pilot, "That's too much, let's get out of here," when the explosives were detonated. Like, he was like, this is not, we gotta bail.
Gonna end well, yeah.
But Jonathan Landis shouted over the radio, "Get lower, get lower."
Well,
Like trying to get lower to the ground.
that's your fault, bud.
Yeah. But then Robinson said the pilot tried to leave the area, but like he got lost and then he lost control because it was so dark and there was just smoke everywhere. He said he regained control and then he could feel something let go and they began spinning around in circles. And then another camera operator said that Jonathan Landis had shrugged off warnings about the stunt with the comment, "We may lose the helicopter." Like, that was what he said.
So nonchalant. Oh my God.
Yeah. They said that like maybe John Landis was joking when he made that remark, But he also said, I learned not to take anything the man said as a joke. It was his attitude. He didn't have time for suggestions from anybody.
Yeah, and even if it was a joke, that's a pretty callous joke from someone who's in charge and people take direction from him.
So they admitted that they'd illegally hired the child actors, and they went to trial for the deaths, and they were never charged with breaking child labor laws.
Why? That's insane.
Yeah. So according to the child labor laws, underage actors must have a work permit and are only allowed to work during certain hours. The helicopter scene, which killed them, was filmed at 2:30 a.m., which was like way past the window of which they were allowed to work.
Past bedtime, yeah.
Neither child had a work permit. Their employment was illegal. And then casting directors were never told the children would be working around explosives. You'd think that'd be the first thing you'd say.
Yeah, you think.
And the families of the children that died were paid under the table to compensate for their losses. So they just tried to pay them off.
Pay them off, to be quiet.
Despite the fact that John Landis openly admitted to employing the actors illegally, he was never charged, but he did have to pay a $5,000 fine and several settlements for lawsuits brought against him. So I don't know. It doesn't say how much he paid the families.
I'm sure not a lot. I'm sure he was very stingy.
Yeah. And he said several other staff members were also responsible for a number of labor violations connected with other people involved in the accident. So like this whole production was just like illegal. Like no one was paid. People were
What was
working
the
2 hours.
studio behind this? Like you'd think the studio would be like monitoring this or something.
I mean, CBS. That was the TV show. MGM Studios, maybe?
Interesting.
MGM, yeah. Yeah, that was back in the 80s. That was when like film sets were like...
No rules.
So then in May 1987, a jury found John Landis and the 4 other people charged not guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
What?
Some people believe the prosecution was in error for not charging Landis with breaking child labor laws and instead trying him for their deaths. So they're like, they should have charged him with child labor.
That makes sense.
Because, I mean, it is kind of hard to prove whose fault it was, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. The company that made the helicopter and producer Steven Spielberg and the Warner Brothers studio, so it was Warner Brothers, they were all named in the lawsuits as well.
Huh.
Then the Directors Guild of America, the safety committee began publishing regular safety bulletins for its members, established a telephone hotline to enable directors to get quick answers to safety questions. And then the guild also began to discipline its members for violations of its safety procedures on sets, which it had not done prior to the crash. So they just changed all these laws because of this crash. And SAG has a 24-hour hotline for and a safety team for its members to like anonymously call and report like if bad shit's going on sets.
But I mean, to this day, I think it's still, if you look at what happened with, what was that movie, Rust?
Oh, yeah.
The Alec Baldwin movie. I mean, I think that there's still unsafe conditions.
Yeah, like using
for workers.
Using real guns on set seems crazy.
Yeah, I think a lot of these rules are overlooked for the sake of creating the movie, and then people really get hurt.
Yeah. But the filming accidents fell by 69% between 1982 and 1986.
Good.
Although there were still 6 deaths on set. I was looking up how many deaths on set. I think there's around like 40.
A year?
No, like total.
Oh, good. I was like, that
40
feels like
a year
lot.
would be a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Landis, he still worked for a while after this accident. He did the Thriller video after this.
God.
3 Amigos, Coming to America, Beverly Hills Cop 3 in 1994. The 2000s, he directed a couple TV shows, but he hasn't done anything since then.
Yeah, after people became like politically correct and
"Wait
thought
a minute."
murder wasn't okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's 71. So like he could still be working, but yeah, I think after like the 90s, they're like, wait a minute, we don't need
it's
to.
actually not okay to do that.
doing?
Oh, God.
And then when the trial ended, he didn't do many interviews and he just tried to like stay out of the public's eye. And then he would never talk about the incident. However, in what he has said, it's obvious that he believes himself to be completely innocent. He pled not guilty in court, and he said, "I know in my head and I know in my heart that we did not cause the accident." And he's also stated during interviews, "What people tend to forget in all this is the helicopter crashed less than a foot from where I stood. It's not like I was removed from this somehow." What an insane thing to say. He's like, I could have died.
This is all about him. Oh, God. Men truly fail upward. It's insane.
Like, you kill people on set and then you direct Thriller.
Yeah, and then you just get more jobs.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good for you. Steven Spielberg was executive producer. Since John Landis' segment was the first to be filmed, Spielberg considered stopping production on the entire movie.
Yeah.
But then ultimately decided to finish the project, but was not happy how John Landis handled the tragedy. He was upset that he refused to take any responsibility, and he cut all ties and contact between them.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Spielberg said, "No movie is worth dying for. I think people are standing up much more now than ever before to producers and directors who ask too much. If something isn't safe, it's the right and responsibility of every actor or crew member to yell, 'cut.'" So good for you, Spielberg.
That's a wrap. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe he could have stopped the movie, but I understand there's probably things in motion bigger than him to do that. So he seems to have taken the right attitude about it.
Crazy that they they still kept that segment in, not the crash, but like it's the first part of the movie. It's the first story.
I can't even imagine. And I feel so horrible for the parents of those kids who did not know what they were getting into.
Yeah, they had no idea. They're like, oh, great. Yeah, our kids will be in a movie. Okay, cool.
Yeah, like a fun cameo. And then that happens. Like, that's so devastating.
So because of the tragedy, the Warner Brothers vice president, John Sylvia, he created a committee that would specifically monitor safety concerns during film productions. They had rules and standards for like pyrotechnics and aircraft stunts. And then the injury and illness prevention program was formed for all the Hollywood studios. So at least they like changed the rules. And now there's risk managers.
Yeah.
Have to check out every location to see if there's like potential problems and even read through scripts to catch issues before filming begins.
That's good.
And they can't be fired by producers or directors.
Oh, good.
They can't be like, no, fuck you. Don't tell us what to do.
Yeah.
So that helps them to feel less intimidated. Intimidated to speak up.
That's smart. That's a good thing to include in, because otherwise I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't want to speak up because they might lose their job.
Yeah, exactly. So John Landis, he was in his early 30s and like in high demand while he was doing this. However, some people that have worked with him, they called him arrogant, said that he could be extremely reckless and stubborn, and when he wanted something filmed a certain way. And then one story claims that he told crew members to climb 30 feet of scaffolding and be blown around by helicopter rotors to fix the lighting while filming Twilight Zone. And then when they questioned this, Landis allegedly called them chicken shit.
Oh,
he wanted them to like climb up this thing and like have a helicopter spinning around. Like, what are you doing?
Jesus
You
Christ.
psycho. What are you doing? But yeah, so it was still released in theaters, and they only had to cut out that one scene because it was 4 different segments. But yeah, Dan Aykroyd was in it. Albert Brooks was in it. John Lithgow was in it.
Yeah.
But then it got bad reviews, and it made way less money. First of all, because it's just not good.
Movie. Yeah.
But also, who's going to give a movie where people died like a good, like it's, I'll give it a B+. No.
Yeah, this is not a work of high art. Yeah.
And then Jonathan Landis said in a 1996 interview, "There was absolutely no good aspect about this whole story. The tragedy, which I think about every day, had an enormous impact on my career from which I may possibly never recover." Everything he says about this is about him or his career.
He's like Jane. But also, no, it didn't. He did great after this. He only continued to succeed.
Yeah. For like the next
decade.
decade.
Spawn. Yeah. It's
his spawn.
Yeah. This had no negative effect on him.
And then when I was reading like what he's up to today, I saw that in 2009, he signed a petition in support of director Roman Polanski.
Yeah, good guy this guy is. He's good head on his shoulders.
Who had been detained while traveling to a film festival in 1997 because of the sexual abuse charges. The petition argued that it would undermine the tradition of film festivals as a place for works to be shown freely and safely, and that arresting filmmakers traveling to neutral countries could open the door for actions of which no one can know the effects.
He's like, we're filmmakers. We should be able to murder and rape. Yeah, artists should be able to murder and rape and then go to Cannes. I don't know what you're talking about. Wow, what a fucking jerk.
What a horrible story. That whole
horrible
family.
Man and horrible movie. Yeah, horrible movie, horrible dude, horrible story. Doing no justice to a fantastic TV show.
And then they made a new Twilight Zone.
Yeah, with my king, Jacob Tremblay, and it was so bad.
I didn't watch it. I read the reviews and I was like, I
watched a few episodes. It was produced by Jordan Peele, but he did not write or direct it.
Right, that's what I thought. I thought he was,
yes.
Like, oh, fuck, it's going to be his writing and directing, but it's not. So
it's not. Like, he just produced it. I thought he was going to write or direct it too, and I was like, this is going to be good. And then he didn't. He didn't really have a hand in it. You could tell. You could tell he's just like a fan of Twilight Zone and wanted to contribute some money to the reboot, and it was just so bad and so stupid.
I refuse to watch it. I'm a Twilight Zone purist.
You're a purist,
just
as one should be.
One. Like, they're still like relevant and like they're great.
It's the original Black Mirror. It's everything Black Mirror was built upon. If you guys have a favorite episode or a Twilight Zone
There's
idea.
A gremlin. There's a man on the wing. There's a gremlin.
There's a man on the wing. Please let us know, Melissa. Where can people reach us?
You can email us at webcrawlerspod@gmail.com.
Well, I am Allie. I think the Landis family might be bad. Siegel.
And I am Melissa. Watch The Twilight Zone. It's the best show ever. Stetton.
There we go. Bye.
Bye.
An Erios original.
Powered by Acast.